And we're live. Hello there. Hello, everybody on Twitch, and welcome to Build on Open Source. I'm
Season
Derek.
2.
Season 2. I'm Derek, and this is
Ricardo. Hello everyone. And it's been I think almost 8 weeks I think since we finished the first season.
yeah.
What have you been up to, Derek?
So Rick, yeah, I've had a nice break. I had a nice holiday, and I am trying to be doing a lot of cycling. I'm a bit of a cyclist, so I enjoy getting out. It's summer down here in Perth, in Western Australia, where I am, and it's nice to get out and have experience some sunshine for a change instead of in front of a computer coding. Right. And yourself, what have you been up to, Rick?
So from sun to ice, I've been in Iceland recently, which I had a 1 week away, and it was beautiful. It was such a great place. I definitely recommend people go there. I mean, the people are so friendly. The landscape is incredible. And there's no such thing as bad weather or cold weather, right? Only poor preparation. So as long as you've got the right gear, you're good to go. So,
yeah, well, I don't own a coat, what we call a coat anymore. I've been in Australia so long, I don't need one. So for anybody who hasn't seen this show before, and this is your first time watching Build on Open Source, well, first of all, where have you been? But second of all, could you tell everybody what we have in store and all about the show, Rick?
Yeah, definitely. So this is a show for open source enthusiasts. So we want to share some of the open source projects you've been working on. So every episode, we're going to try and cover the latest roundup of open source projects, new ones, share some of the cool content you're creating. And we're also going to bring in guests. So we've got a guest today who's going to be talking about one of the projects that they've created. They'll be on later on. So the show, the way it works is that we start off with doing a roundup. And because it's been like 8 weeks, there's obviously lots to cover. And then we'll move and transition into inviting our guests, asking them about their open source project. And then they're going to dive into that project, with a demo and show us code. And then we'll wrap up at the end. So that's typically for people who are joining for the first time. That's how the show runs. Obviously, typically, fingers crossed. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you coming from? Where are you joining the session from? Also, what are your favorite open source projects? We really want to cover and feature some of those open source projects. Are you working on an open source project that you want to feature in the show? Because we'd love to cover them. So get in contact. Put the name of the project in the chat. Share it with everyone else who's watching. Both live and also when we publish this on our YouTube channel as well.
Nice. Yes, and speaking of guests, Rick, I just got a message from our guest for today saying their laptop has just crashed and nothing is working. So this is live, and we'll see how we go. But hi to everybody who's on the chat and saying hi. It's nice to see that you're there and engaging. And we are having a little bit of live coding today if the guest arrives.
Yeah,
the laptop behaves. I'm just a little bit nervous.
The fingers crossed, actually. And it's really weird because I've been thinking about this. What happens, with my work laptop? If it dies, then it's game over, right? So I'm trying to figure out. Well, I need a backup laptop now just so that I can run StreamYard. But also before we transition into the first segment of the show, which is looking at the latest open source updates. I do have a small ask, which is I've put a poll together on Twitter. And if you are readers of the open source newsletter, then I'd really like for you to tell me what benefit you get from it. What's the reason why you enjoy the newsletter, or maybe you don't? Share also in comments either here or in Twitter. How we can improve it, right? So I'm trying to basically understand how people are using it so that we can improve that going forward. So just a small favor there. It'll literally take you a few seconds to do that. So thanks Derek, for sharing the link.
And so I put the link in the post, and thanks everybody. Just go in there. Rick, just a word of advice. I can hear a fizzling in your sound. You just check your connection.
Okay.
Fizzling a bit.
Right, this is interesting.
Yeah,
it's all happening today.
This is season 2, folks. So it's just saying that we are live. This is not a recording, and anything can happen.
Pages of going live
in a live show. So while Rick's doing that. I'll also show that you can tweet us on build.open. So again, if you've any open source projects that you're entirely passionate about and you really are using and you really think are really useful, tweet us about them and we'll include them in the show, and even get the contributor and owner of that project on the show. Absolutely. As well. That's better, Rick. You're sounding better now.
Awesome. Well, the magic of real time troubleshooting, right?
That's for sure. That's for sure.
So I think we're ready to transition into the first
show. Okay, and go.
Okay, and as if by magic, the newsletter appears.
The shopkeeper appeared. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to cover first of all the newsletter that's going to be published on Monday. So this is currently work in progress, but obviously the benefit of people on the show is that watching the show is that you get to see this first, right? So there's a lot of really cool projects we're going to be covering. Obviously, I don't have time unless our guest doesn't come, and then I'll come back and cover more of these. But every episode, I feature new projects, okay? And quite often, these projects, I split them into two segments. One are like tools that you can use that are useful to either increase your productivity, improve the developer experience, or just to make your life easier and simpler, right? But then also share projects that are like demos or samples, these are useful because they allow you to see how you could do something or architect something or build something, and quite often because they're open source, you can actually use them as a base to build your own solutions, right? And I talk about the 4 freedoms of open source, and I think this is one of the reasons why I think these are so cool, because the freedom to view and study these projects often helps you learn how to improve your own solution. So with that, I'm going to talk about CC Explorer, which if I go through here, okay. So CC Explorer, what is CC Explorer? So this is a command line tool from Colin Duggan.
Duggan. I would pronounce it Duggan. Yeah.
Okay. I think he's Irish actually. I think he is Irish.
Well, then I definitely pronounce it Duggan.
I hope I got that right, Colin. So if you're watching, so this is a project which allows you to, via the command line, sort of look at your cost. Now, I have actually got this. If the demo gods are going to be kind to me, I've got this, I hope, as a demo, just to show you that, we do actually check these things out. And so what I'm running, okay, is a very basic way of running the tool. The README. So Derek,
Anthony's fault is Anthony's fault.
Yeah. So actually, before I proceed, Derek and me were talking before we started the show, okay, and I am feeling a bit gingerly this morning because I was led astray by Ant, Matt, and Rick. So Ant, who's just messaged there, hello, mate. I'm feeling worse for wear, but I'm like a trooper. I'm carrying on.
Pushing through. It's pushing through.
And actually, it's also the reason why I've got this lovely Barry White voice, right? Because that's the effect alcohol has on me. So anyway, back to CC Explorer. Okay.
Stay on target. Stay on target.
Stay on target. Yeah, use the force, Luke. So you run this query. It's got an interactive CLI, but you can also pass it parameters and it'll run it for you. And what I can do is I can actually through this, it goes through my own AWS account, and it now produces a very nice in-terminal report of my cloud usage. Okay. So I think this is useful, especially as we're all trying to reduce our costs. I think this is a nice way, and obviously because it's a command line tool, you can potentially automate that, automate it, produce reports, then obviously use maybe code to then do stuff with it, right? So I think it's a really nice project, definitely worth checking out. There are other cool projects as well, but that's definitely something that I think you should all be checking out. So that's from the current newsletter that's going to be going out on Monday. But again, you've seen it here first, and also wait until the end of the show, because we'll be sharing a link where you can get some exclusive content from the first episode of season 2 by completing a very short survey. So if hang around till the end and click on that link, and then you'll get access to all this stuff before anyone else does.
Nice work, Mr. Duggan. And as if you've seen this show before, you'll realize that Rick and I both love CLI tools and ASCII art. So,
Indeed.
what's the next highlight?
Okay, next highlight. So now I'm going to be moving back to some of the previous newsletters, right? Because there's been a gap between the last season and this season. So we've had, I think, 8 newsletters. And so I thought I'd just peek, rather than go through all the latest ones, I thought I'd do a bit of a peek at the previous ones. And in the previous newsletter, one of the projects that I really thought was interesting was this one called Pre-Cloud, which actually I've just realized I actually click on, I used the wrong link. It kind of takes you to the demo. But it's not that difficult to go back to the actual project itself, okay? But what's interesting about this, okay, is this allows you to, through the CLI again, allows you to do kind of check your infrastructure as code for potential issues before you do it. Now, I'm a big user of CDK. I love it. And even though most of the time when I do CDK, if you've got any major issues with your code, CDK catches it, right? But there have been times where you've done a CDK deploy, it's deployed, and then typically for me, it's like S3 buckets already exists or something like that, right? Yep. Or passwords is not meeting your criteria. And then you have to undo everything and do it again. So this tool will help you catch those kinds of issues. So really, really useful. I'm planning on trying this out with some new demos I'm writing.
Yep.
And to see how it's going. So check this project out. I think it's super interesting, and it's going to save people a lot of hassle with those annoying little issues.
I've actually had to play with this one, Rick, myself. There's a few caveats once you get set up. Just make sure that you're using the latest version of the AWS CDK, as this project is built against it, and also as it uses CDK Bootstrap. So what it does, it looks at the deployment in your account. So if you must make sure that your account is bootstrapped with the CDK as well in that latest version, and then it works seamlessly. It's very, very, very nice.
Very nice, so nice. We like that. Okay, so from that project to the newsletter 143. Okay, and here I want to shout out to this project, Porting Advisor for Graviton. Now, I am a big fan of ARM-based processors.
You are.
I've done talks on creating multi-architecture pipelines to help you sort of build your applications on both x86 and ARM-based architectures. And I've done presentations that help you make that move, right? This is actually a tool that will help you automate that and provide a report against your current applications and on how to optimize those for running and compiling against Graviton. So I think this is really useful. I definitely recommend people look at this if they're looking at moving their applications to Graviton and want a quick sanity check, really, of what might issues or optimizations that I might need to make. And if you're not looking at ARM, then why not? That's what tell us in the chat. Why, what are you doing with ARM? It's something. Is that, and I think also the reason why I'm interested in it is because with open source you get the source code, and that means it's kind of like in a good position for porting to x86, ARM, or even RISC-V when it comes along, right? So I think this is one of the reasons why I am so interested in this space, because with open source, it's a good fit for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of good debate around when to use ARM and how to use ARM. And I specifically talked to .NET developers, and so some can be a bit reticent about using ARM, and you have to be careful about what version of .NET to use. So yeah, we like to have those sort of conversations. So if anybody has had experience around ARM, let us know.
Yeah, definitely. Then the next, where is it? Where's my cursor gone? So in the same episode, okay. Now this is an interesting one, right? Now I would say I'm not a super fan of Electron, right? Normally, because it creates these massive, huge things, right? But
huge,
yeah,
absolutely huge.
This I think is interesting. Someone's created CDK in Electron, right? And the first thought, well, why would you do that?
Why?
But then I think it's actually interesting because I mean, when I create my CDK apps, I typically have a parameters file in the. I don't use environment variables. I do sometimes,
Sure.
but quite often
Yep.
in my I use Python. So in my app.py, I'll bootstrap the variables that I can then change, and also people can use for their own environments. And you could potentially wrap this around that and make it easier for people to deploy their own infrastructure, right? So I'm not saying you should do that, but I think it's kind of an interesting idea. So I'm sharing it because
because Electron.
Yeah, well, so I'm currently looking at some other options to Electron that are much. I can't remember what it's called now. I think it's called Towie. Towie is like basically does the same thing, but it's Rust based, and also it's produces very slimline optimized code as opposed to what Electron apps give you.
Yeah,
Right.
nice work. Nice work just coming up with the concept of what can we wrap in Electron.
Totally. Yeah, good thumbs up for creativity, which is obviously what
Absolutely.
I'm about.
Yep.
And the next project that I'm going to cover, in fact, actually the last project before we hand over to our guest segment,
who has arrived,
is this one, SLS Mentor, right? And I think this is again another CLI tool with ASCII graphics.
What's up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Now, so what this does, okay, you can run this, and it kind of like effectively goes through your environment and gives you a check. And there are different levels of the check. So actually, I've got a demo potentially of this if it works.
Yep.
Let's have a look. Right. So here we go. So you run it, and again, it's node based, and you can run it for different levels. I'm going to run it through level 1, and I don't know how. I think it runs pretty quickly. The last time I ran it ran in like a few seconds. So obviously, I need to do a lot better in some of these areas, right?
Yeah, you need to lift your game,
I do,
young sir. That's diabolical.
It's diabolical, isn't it? And actually, it provides, especially when it comes to server-side encryption, right? I'm pretty lax. So I've actually, as a result of running this tool, I'm going to go and actually run a script to do that, to enable that, right? So it's been useful in that respect, right? But it produces a nice report for you. So if you're looking for a quick sanity check for your environment, for your environments, then why not give it a go? There's also a blog post that I linked to that actually shows some of the ways in which you can use it. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Nice. That's awesome. Nice highlights, Rick. Just your static electricity. Somebody said so the sound problem could be the static electricity from your jumper.
Oh my God.
It comes and goes. It's quite funny when you're typing. It then starts to crackle. I reckon it could be right. It's that glorious open source jumper that you have on.
Just show you. I want to show you because it is lovely. It's got a lovely bit of fleece open source. So I'm going to try and stay still. If it's static electricity, then I'm going to stay still.
Yeah. So Avoris Dim called that out on the chat, and I think that might be right.
Okay, right. Well, I'm gonna hopefully the sound and audio will settle down now.
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
So I think, Derek, that's a roundup for both the newsletter is going to be published on Monday, plus a few highlights, a few snippets from the last few weeks. So if you haven't checked out those newsletters, then please do. At the end of the show, again, we're going to share a link where you're going to get access to some exclusive content of some of the stuff we shared today, and the stuff that's going in the newsletter on Monday. So make sure that you watch out for that and click on the link, and you'll get the PDF. So I think with that, Derek, I think it's time for the next segment.
Let's roll in the guest. And I forgot to remove your screen, and so we have Walter. Welcome, Walter. We're glad you so made it to build on open source. We were a bit worried, but we're glad you made it.
I was not worried at all. I knew Walter, that you'd have it, and I'm really pleased that you've closed the cupboard as well, because it's a little bit of a joke. The last time when we were doing the dry run, I was getting really disturbed by
I was noticing this one is a bit open, actually.
No, good stuff.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, Rick gets triggered by open cupboards.
I do. And Derek, your cupboards are always closed now.
Always.
Closed.
You don't want to look at my cupboards.
I'm not sure there's a deeper meaning in that, but let's not go there.
Okay, while we ramble on, Walter, do you want to introduce yourself? That would be a good place to start, so everybody knows why you're here.
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So, my name is Walter Silva. I'm part of the AWS Professional Services team. We are based here in Perth, where we help our customers to accelerate their journey into the cloud.
Go Perth.
Nice. So Walter, talk to us about your journey in open source. Right, we like to hear people's origin stories. Right, what was the first time you thought, what's this open source thing? Tell us more about how you came to be an open source developer.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started when I was in college, and my professors introduced me to Linux. I was blown away by how a lot of people across the planet were helping putting this together for free, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I delved deep into Linux. Later on, I moved into infrastructure. So I was playing a lot with Vagrant and Terraform. And I admire companies such as HashiCorp, where they put their products, to the community. And I was very pleased with that. So, but by the time I started working at AWS Professional Services, I started noticing that AWS has this culture of, give back to the community and let them use it. Give feedback. We are driven by data, as we say in the company. So it's very nice to see that as a culture, we take that feedback, we improve based on the customer data, meaning okay, we have a problem, how can we fix this? And then maybe more than one person might have the same issue. Okay, that's a good idea for an open source project. So that's how my thinking is when it comes to developing solutions and giving back to the community.
Nice. And do you have any favorite, apart from Linux, do you have any other favorite open source projects?
Yes, I like Terraform, as I mentioned. I like CDK, our CLI, the AWS CLI. It's very comprehensive. A lot of people, coming together. I know I'm saying Terraform a lot, but just to exemplify the community, right? I mean, there's a lot of modules, a lot of consulting company as well using Terraform. So they came together and they developed a lot of battle tested modules, which downloaded more than millions of times. With CDK is the same, right? So I think the core message here is when you build something like that a lot of people start to use, you start forming a community, and that's the beauty of it to me,
right.
Especially.
I mean, it's a good segue. It's a good segue into actually what are you going to show us today?
Before we get into that, Walter, let's just take a pause. And if anybody's jumped onto the show and they're like, what's going on here? Let's just to reiterate while we're here. So this is the Build On Open Source show on the AWS Twitch channel. And we're here talking to Walter about his open source project that he built to scratch an itch. And so, Walter, what was that itch?
Yes, that itch is called AWS Terraform Dev Container, and I will be more than happy to show how it works to you guys.
Let's see the code.
That's awesome. Let's see
Awesome.
if I can. Are you sharing your screen? I'm not seeing a screen share.
Okay.
I'm hearing.
Entire screen.
The jumper.
Awesome.
There we go. Yep. Yeah. And so you're sharing. Currently, oh, there we go. You were sharing us again. So that would have been really meta.
Happy days.
Awesome.
So
this is the project. It's available under AWS Labs, AWS Terraform Dev Container. I will give you a quick explanation about it, but before I do that, I would like to explain the original problem. So just to set the scene, to give you guys a bit of context. So think when we want to start, or want to work with Terraform, right? So we usually have to go through their documentation and say how to install it, right? So to give an example, this is how how you install Terraform on Linux, right? And then after installing it, this will give you the latest version. You will have to start coding. So for this particular example, I'm using a code provided by HashiCorp themselves. And it basically provisions an EC2 instance, right? And that's it. But if we do
Just a second,
that,
Walter. Can I just stop you there, Rick? Could you just back off your microphone a little bit? Let's see if that gets rid of that. There's a static sound coming through.
Okay.
Let's see. There we go. Yeah, thanks. There we go, Walter. Continue.
No worries. Thank you. So as I was saying before, this is how you install it. A few of steps, and then you have to run these commands in sequence, right? So usually you have to initialize, which would download all the dependencies. You have to format the code, validate, just make sure it is syntactically correct. And then you will do the plan and apply what you want, right? So a few options commands if you want to show your plan, list the states that you have, and then by the end, destroy your infrastructure, right? So this is the usual scenario that we found ourselves, right? Either when working with Terraform, either in a project or in a team. But the problem with this is that there are various ways of installing Terraform, different OSs. I might be working on Linux. My colleague might be working on Windows. Also, there are a lot of third-party tools, as I mentioned before. Terraform has a big community, which is great. However, I might run some commands. My colleague next to me might not, right? So it starts to create this tech debt, let's say this way, when the hygiene is not being applied consistently, right? And there are different challenges, such as, for example, I might install a particular version, my colleague might install another one, so they don't match, right? So when we execute things, it might give you different results, right? Which is often the case. And also, the commands are, as I mentioned before, the commands are not executed consistently in terms of an order to ensure proper validation, hygiene, CI/CD, you name it, right? So, and when it comes to this particular point, there are some tools which help us, such as pre-commit or gitignore and many others. And some projects, when you work, especially in my case, with a lot of enterprise customers, they have dozens of even hundreds of repositories, right? And you see this hygiene or the consistency of these files. Some projects have, some projects don't have, and it can become a bit of a mess, right? So the question here then is, how can we ensure that we, as developers, as a team, we have a common environment, right? So Microsoft has developed a solution called VS Code Dev Container. So basically, you need to have VS Code, you need to have the remote development extension, which you can find under your VS Code. It's pretty easy to install it. You need to have Docker because we will bring our environment within a Docker container. And if you're working on Windows, you just need WSL, right, or Windows Subsystem for Linux, and you should be okay with that. Just for those of you who might not know what dev container is, so basically you develop you code within your local OS, and then what happens under the hood is that the extension will map your directory into a volume, right, inside of a container, and everything you execute in that container, it's It's transmit everything you execute in a terminal is executed within that container. And the benefit is my experience as a developer, it's really, really smooth because to me, it looks on my OS, my IDE, but then my development occurs in the container, which can be Linux, it can be any distro your company might want to use. And even it solves a lot of issue when it comes to tooling and so on, right? So to give you guys an example.
So in your architecture, so you've got the local and container, and you've got exposed ports, right?
Rick, sorry, Rick, the sound's not coming through well at all. It's flashed. Maybe try a different mic. I have a question actually, Walter. So if anybody, I think the overarching theme here is if you're not using a dev container, you should be, because it's very easy to set up and it makes everything immutable and reusable.
Yep.
And actually, I saw Code Catalyst. Is it Code Catalyst that we released at reInvent? Actually, makes it super easy to set these up and connect into an EC2 instance for your container, which is pretty cool. And I played with that the other week.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is that any better, Derek? Am I coming through okay now?
Yes, that's much better. Much
Okay.
better.
Okay.
Your sweater's better.
This is the last time I wear this sweater on the show. So the question I had, Walter, is that you've got local OS container, okay? So that's if you're on your own laptop, okay, you can have both of those on those, right? But could you have the container on like a EC2 server or on a remote server as well, or does that work as well?
It works, yes. However, it is a different extension, which is for remote development. For example, over here, you can, within the same extension I listed over here, it will install this one, which is called Remote Explorer, where you create connections and then you SSH to that instance and you run
so
within your ID.
Local. So everything is local. You're just running it on a container. You're using
Correct.
VS Code and the exposed port and volume. Okay, how is that? Is it a single port? Is it using SSH tunnel, or is that just managed by the plugin?
Yes, it's managed by the plugin. However, you can, let's say, for example, you bring a Docker Compose, right, where I have a web application and then I have a Postgres database. So you expose through 389. And then my web application is able to connect to the another.
So it's all through the Docker file, right? Okay, got you.
Yep. Awesome. So as you guys can see, I have nothing, right? I just have my Terraform code over here, and I don't even have the Terraform extension, right? Just to showcase how the experience can also be enriched with this solution. So to install the Terraform dev container, you just execute this in your, let's execute this command. As you can see, it's cloning the project, and I'm only interested in the dev container folder, and you will create a JSON file where it specifies a Docker file, and then there are a couple of arguments that you can pass on to your Docker file. So basically, let me just pin this and this one. So every time my VS Code starts, VS Code notices that I have a dev container JSON. It will understand, okay, this is how you want me to build your image. I personally prefer this way because then the way we build stuff is version control. So I can share this with you, Rick, or with Derek. Instead of, you can also specify your own Docker image, whatever you want. Let's say a company has a particular set of, images you have to use, no problem, you just specify over here. And that's it, right? So, and what I would also touch very briefly is I'm using another tool that I built, another open source project called AWS Code Habits, which to summarize, is a library of make files. So just to save me some time, I just combine this into this project instead of having to rewrite the same commands or the same process over and over again, right? So coming back over here, once I install it, this is the process if you want to install manually, right? Yeah, so we have habits and we do have our dev container. What we can do now, we open our command palette and say rebuild and reopen in container. Should be pretty quick because before the show, I obviously built the image, so nothing, it shouldn't take too long. As you can see, it's done. And also, because I'm using Microsoft's provided Docker image, I don't have to maintain this. And the image itself comes with a bunch of tools, and that it's well integrated with VS Code, and you can verify the information like the timestamp when this image was built, and also the history of the image, right? So the tools that are installed and so on. So, sorry, is there a question?
No, I was just worried that building the image previously before you came on the show crashed your laptop.
Well, you say that, but yesterday I was building a container image for Apache Airflow, and it did actually ground my Mac to a complete halt. So it convinced me to it. I did have a question though. So what you've shown so far, okay, is a repo that allows you to, if I understand rightly, if you've got a group of developers, right, so or you're developing at scale, to provide them all with a consistent environment on which to develop, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then the benefit of also having a library where I might have the same commands. I have a certain commands. You might have others. But having a library that in this particular case is distributed as a Git submodule ensures that everyone is on the same page. We build the same way. We test the same way, right? So just coming back to the problems we listed and how the dev container, the Terraform dev container helps. What about if people have different OSs? In this particular case, everyone will develop on Ubuntu. How to Terraform? It's a pretty simple command with make. This one is already installed, so I don't have to worry about this now. The third-party tools, the same thing. If you want to pin particular versions, it is already version control because the dev container JSON is version control as well.
So can I ask a question, Walter? So you're talking about make files here. So make help, make. So where does that come into this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fair question. It's all the make libraries or all the make commands, right? When I executed that curl command, it cloned my AWS Terraform dev container project and moved the dev container project because VS Code requires you to have the dev container folder in the root. And I also cloned and added as a submodule the AWS code habits over here. With this, there's a bunch of make commands available to me at my own convenience. So for example, if I execute make help, you'll see a lot of commands, how to build the libraries, how to install things, how to initialize, how to, and so on. I don't want to talk too much about this because if not, the demo will be.
No, that's good. I just wanted to make sure that it was just so that everyone knows where they make where they come from, and how you use it. So that's great. That's awesome.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
So if anybody's just joining us, this is the Build on Open Source show, and today our guest is Walter, and he's taking us through how to set up your development environment for Terraform, so that every developer working on a project has exactly the same dev environment, same setup, same version numbers of everything that they use. And now I believe you're going to show us the next part.
Yes, absolutely. So now that I also reloaded as a dev container, right? You can see over here the indication at the bottom of the screen. It is a dev container and the name. There are a couple of extensions installed. So in my opinion, enriches the experience of as a development toolkit. So as we are working with Terraform, I want the highlight, the Terraform syntax. So when I click now in my project on the Terraform files, you can see that the syntax is highlighted, right? So let's say if I'm working with Python or the different languages or different projects, the same process, right? You simply can add an extension over here. I'm sorry you are seeing these errors, but it's because of another extension that I have installed. And also, I might say, right, the dev container, it's well maintained by Microsoft. So they are constantly making some changes. So yeah, just be aware of that. Nothing to worry too much. But if you're seeing this, yeah, they are, in this particular case, they want you to use a different setup. So meaning customizations, VS Code extension, right? Okay, coming back over here. Now we can, what about the third-party tools, right? As one of the things we were talking before. Now we can easily initialize TF-lint, which I will explain in a second. We can build our documentation automatically. What about pre-commits? We can quickly have a bootstrap, right? A initial configuration for pre-commit config. The same goes for git ignore, ignoring particular files, particular folders. And when it comes to, let's say, standards or best practices such as security, we have a TFSec, which is another third-party tool, amazing one, by the way. So you can all, because of the benefits of using Make, meaning you have dependency and rules, you can create your own rules, or you can leverage the rules made available by AWS Code Habits, right? So to give an example, I'm just gonna copy and paste over here, this one. So this is a pretty simple make file where I am just importing the habits folder, meaning the AWS Code Habits, and making it available, as you saw over here with when I type help, all these commands are available to you. But let's say, I do things a little bit different. I want to execute certain commands before. So, okay, cool. So now I'm just going to execute make init. I'm sorry. I know what's going on. It's just that, yeah.
It's live.
Make it,
You always get that live.
Yeah. Yes.
So whilst you get that working, so you're talking about lots of these Terraform plugins, right? What's your favorite Terraform plugin? I mean, I have one. I mean, I'm not a big Terraform user, right? But there's the is it Infracrust that allows you to create, when you do your plan, it gives you an estimation of the cost of your infrastructure. I think that's one of that.
Nice.
That is a really cool plugin, especially as we're all looking to optimize on cost and everything. I think that's definitely a nice plugin to
oh yeah. No, absolutely. I think my personal favorites are TF-lint and TF-sec. I will show you how they work just in a second, but just to explain you guys what's going on. So as I initialize my project, I executed make init. So my TF-lint was created, as you can see over here. And my pre-commit config was also initialized with a bunch of checks, which enhances my hygiene, right, overall. And then there are Anton Babenko's pre-commit Terraform rules. If you guys don't know Anton, make sure to check him out. He's one of the greatest heroes within the Terraform community.
Absolutely,
he's amazing.
So he's an AWS hero. He also, I think, he does a regular weekly YouTube show, doesn't he, on Terraform? And like you say, he's the maintainer for the AWS modules as well. So definitely worth following. And if you're, if you want to know more and keep up to date with all the stuff he's doing, then to make sure you follow his weekly stream.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you guys can see, I mean, it just took me like because obviously just be conscious, right, that I'm doing this step by step. But as you are doing this in a normal basis, you would just run a command because this would be already there with the make files and everything, right? With the dev container. So as you can see, with a single command, I initialize and I ensure that my projects are set up to success when it comes to high standards. And now I will execute a plan, and the plan will build a document and will execute a pre-commit, right? So all the rules within the pre-commit. So when I do make plan, it is downloading all the pre-commit hooks that I have, and it is executing them.
So whilst that's working, the use of make files in Terraform, is that a common practice, or is it something that you recommend in order to do and automate what you like what you've done here?
Yeah, look, I think Makefile is a powerful, tool. I have seen it obviously to build projects, but I've noticed also this adoption by the cloud infrastructure community. So whenever you go to a Go project or a Terraform module, they usually would have a Makefile to ensure all of these things. Because the beauty of Make is, you have a rule such as init, and then you can create dependencies. So look, this will only go forward. It will only execute Terraform pre-commit init if the tflint init was successful, right? So you don't have to maintain all of that, with a bash when it is, or a Python or something. Right. So Make was built by this, and yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because I've started getting into them, right? But it's an art form. Make files are an art form.
I am a little
yep. Yeah. So just to then summarize, we executed the pre-commit, and one of the parts of the pre-commit was let me just check over here. 1 second. Was over here, right? So we have a couple of rules, right, that we need to execute because we are working with Terraform. And then one of the rules was tfsec, as I was mentioned to you, Rick, one of my favorite third-party tools, because it will ensure that, as you know, at Amazon, security is job zero. We are always aware of that. And over here is saying, look, when it comes to metadata for your EC2 instance, you should enable your HTTP token when it comes to, the instance metadata service, right? So if you click on it, sorry. If you click on it, it will give you like the reasons over here, a good explanation. What is an insecure example and what is a secure example? So just to solve our issue, we just need to over here. And I'm pasting this on purpose, like lack of invitation, so on. You guys will see what I mean. And then there's another issue over here, which is high in terms of priority. We definitely we want to solve this first before pushing to production, especially. So the block device could be compromised if you read from, because encryption is not enabled, right? So we need to allow encryption into all blocks. And same thing, right? A couple of bad examples and a good one. So just for this demo, just copy and pasting over here. Cool. So now we wanna, because our plan was to stop because of those things, just execute it again. And we are checking for if there's symlinks, private keys, fix of end of files, you name it, right? So a bunch of rules just to make sure our hygiene is very high. And yeah, the files were modified, they were fixed. As you can see, they are well indented. So just running again, and it's executing a plan. I don't have my credentials over here. So if you don't mind, I will just stop sharing 1 second.
Yeah, nothing to see here. You go ahead and put in your credentials, and we'll chat as if nothing's happening.
So you know what I do, okay, is I've got a regex on my terminal that basically, if it's a string that matches the AWS access keys or secret keys, it basically it makes it invisible because it turns the text the same color as the terminal. So I can confidently cap my credentials file, and no one will see it on live because that's always a scary thing. Like you might accidentally show it, So I did it, and it worked. What's interesting is it works across things like VS Code that uses term as well. So it's definitely a good hack if you want to protect them. Use regex capabilities of some of the terminals. So I use iTerm, right? But a lot of the others do similar things.
You should write an article about that, Rick. That would be
okay. I might do that.
Yeah, you should do that.
Yeah. So just coming back then, guys, the plan was executed. I have access to my account, and as you can see, this is a plan.
Yes, hold on, just a second. I've just dropped the ball there. There we go. The ball has been lifted up again.
We'll let you off.
All right. So as you can see, I executed again the make plan, and all the checks pre-commit were executed, ensuring again a good hygiene. And then we have our and then we have our instance. Also, the TFSec has been executed. No issues there. And now we can execute a Terraform make apply. Just as this it's being executed, you will start to notice that a couple of files show up over here. One of them is the Terraform Markdown. And for those of you who don't know, this is one of the nicest third-party tools for Terraform, which basically will scan your Terraform files and we'll put as requirements, providers, and the modules if you have more info. And we'll give you inputs such as variables and the outputs, right? So if anyone wants to use your module, for example, they know exactly what the module is providing. And I think it's just a nice tool to have.
Nice. Yep. So we've got exactly 7 minutes left, Walter.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. So guys, this is one issue I found. So this code I'm executing is provided by HashiCorp in their tutorial. So there's a learn.hashicorp.com, and as you can see, one of the things that is missing, it's the over here, right? So HTTP endpoint is either enable or disable. However, if you go to their documentation, it's saying it is optional, but as you can see, it is not. The way, it's not.
Naughty documentation.
That's the first documentation out of sync.
Yeah. Whatever next.
It's not this one. Just 1 second. Is that HTTP?
HTTP endpoint.
Maybe
HTTP endpoint. The camel case.
This is live troubleshooting.
No, hang on. One sec. EC2. Yeah. Wait. EC2 resource.
We're just going to the documentation here to work out what the right parameter name is. I reckon it's going to be camel case. There's a P. The P is uppercase.
Yeah. No, because I was actually. No, you're right. HTTP endpoint. You're right. It's either able because of their metadata options. Okay, it needs to be inside of
inside an array.
Yeah, now it's over here actually.
Okay. There. A couple of lines too late.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So as you can see, every time I, as I was typing, there were empty lines and stuff that needs to be fixed. But because I developed this habit of running the same make command, all those things were care for me, let's say, right? So it is creating my instance now. Yep. Sorry.
Okay. So basically, this is actually we're actually now going through the development, run through the tests, and it's now actually deploying.
Yep.
That's
whilst,
right.
So Walter, whilst we're waiting for this to deploy, there is something that we need to ask you.
No, we haven't asked. Well, the question No, let's just remove the screen for while it's deploying and
So-
ask Walter
The,
the
most
question.
important question.
Yeah.
You go into
Yeah.
a pizza. Okay, you go to get your favorite pizza, and the question we all want to know, okay, is do you have pineapple on it or do you not have pineapple on it?
Very important question.
We've got your I've got your this is you. So this is you.
I do have pineapple on it. Absolutely.
Ah, but hold on, Rick. He said he does have pineapple, but do you
Yeah.
enjoy it, Walter?
Yeah.
Look,
Do you
I must
enjoy
say, as a Brazilian, I do, because back in Brazil, we make all sorts of pizzas with border, without border, square pizza, fried pizza. So yeah.
Well, you know, you're a friend of the show, and you know, I think we take a data-driven approach to this really important topic, and certainly from the chart so far, I think the vast majority of people are saying pizza and pineapple are a good mix. So thank you for not disappointing.
Excellent,
Anyway.
excellent.
Absolutely.
So I
Absolutely.
think we're kind of coming up to the end of the show. So Walter, thanks very much for showing us the demo, showing how
that's
you
great.
can use your Terraform dev container to apply consistency within your development groups, and showing us that demo of how you can use that with all the various makefiles. I think you showed us two projects, right? There's the DevTools container, and then there's the Code Habits as well, which is a collection of makefiles,
Exactly.
right? So we're going to share links to the repositories.
I'm doing that now.
which we got that now. Okay.
Yep.
So if you want to check it out, please do. We're going to share Volta's socials. So if you want to ask Volta any more questions about the project, then please reach out to him on socials. I think just wrapping up the show, there's a couple of things. The first one is we've got our feedback. I mentioned it before. Derek, can we put the feedback thing up?
Yeah, absolutely, Rick. It's up there.
Yeah. So please, we run off feedback and we collect data. It's a very short survey. It's 4 or 5 questions, and we use this to help understand how to better support open source projects and communities. So really grateful if you can complete this very, very short survey. You can either scan the QR code or use the link there, and in return you'll get an exclusive piece of content. So the newsletter, the projects, a few other bits and pieces are accessible via a PDF, which you'll get. So please do that. We're very grateful. And then finally, next episode in 2 weeks' time on March 3rd, I think. Really excited to have Teddy De La Fuente, who's going to be showing us about his open source Prowler project, which is a really great security tool that goes through your environments and effectively produces reports based on different security standards and frameworks that you might be interested in. Okay, so really looking forward to learning more about this project and how you can actually implement this in your development sort of life cycle. So that's coming up on 3rd of March. I think that all that's left really to say is thank you, Volta, again for coming on and showing us.
Thanks, Walter.
Thank you
Awesome.
for coming and watching on the show. Again, please join us in the show on the 3rd of March. And also, if you want to contact Derek and myself about what open source projects you want to see on the show, and tweet us on that thing there.
And I'll build on open. Yep.
Yeah. So also, it came up in the questions. This show will get also published on the Build on Open Source YouTube channel, so the Build on AWS YouTube channel, which has a playlist. So we'll be sharing that as well. So with that, I'm going to say thank you again, Walter, and goodbye, Derek.
Thank you, Rick. It was a sterling effort to get through the show today. Well done, sir. And thank you, Walter. It was a really great demo. I like the way you stepped through it. It was really nice. Nicely done. The onion layers were peeled nicely. So yes,
thank you.
Thank you very much. And
see you in 2 weeks' time, everyone.
See you in 2 weeks.